Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where you'll hear stories of inspiration and hope realized. Hosted by Dianne A, intuitive empowerment mentor who specializes in working with people who want to be freed from being stuck in life. You will hear personal stories and professional insights, along with tips on how to conquer overthinking, procrastination, and more. Here's Dianne.
Hey everybody, it's Dianne at Someone Gets Me, and today we have a really cool interview for you. You're not going to believe the cool woman I have that you will hear from. This woman is an amazing person. Not only is she educated and really brilliant and smart in her own right, she's one of the most creative visionaries I've ever met. I was just introduced to her by somebody else on this podcast, Tamara Benson, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. And we've hit it off like we're long lost sisters or something. We even do some of the same stuff on the same days. So we're going to have so much fun learning about being a creative woman who's a visionary, who's also really smart and business savvy. So how did she put it together, I wonder? Plus, she's a mom. So she does something really special, and we cannot wait to hear from her. So I'd like you to welcome with me to the show, Kate Butler.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an intro. That was brilliant. I need to capture that and add that to my website.
Well, there you go. It's captured on the recording here at this podcast, and you're free to use it, but that's how it is. You know, it's like the world just brings great people together, and the audience of this podcast are amazing people all over the world who are different and visionary and sometimes feel misunderstood.
Yes. Yep.
And so I think you're one of the most perfect guests of everybody because you've been able to take the unique gifts you have and the differences, if you will, and create something really magical with them. So I'd like to start out with a little bit about you sharing with us whatever you feel like about kind of who you are and how'd you get here? Like, has there ever been a time when people didn't understand you, or how have you made it through those kinds of challenges to rise above like you are today?
Sure. Well, I can say that I don't even know if people understand me now. So I don't know that I've ever come full circle from that. So, I think that, from a very early age, I've always felt quite different. I always understood life to work very differently than most people. And so, I remember being a little girl and sitting up in my room when all the other kids in the neighborhood were out there playing tag and jailbreak and, all these neighborhood games. And I'd be sitting up in my room with my windows open and I could hear all the kids playing. And I enjoyed that. I loved listening to them. But I also enjoyed sitting up in my room and cutting out pictures and creating, at that time, I called them dream books. Boards, vision boards, none of that was mainstream talked about, taught, anything like that. I just knew innately that this was something I was called to do. And I would create these books of my dreams and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I did that for years. And then when I moved out of my home and I went to college, I created vision boards or dream boards in my room. And I'm still really good friends with a lot of people from college. And they say, do you remember that you had quotes all over your walls and you had these, boards up of all your dreams? And, how funny is that? Now everybody's doing it, right? And so I was always, aligned with what I'm doing now. But as I filtered my way through life, there was no one else that was doing the things that I was doing. So I can't say that people really understood what I was doing, but for me, it just made a lot of sense. And it just was what I was called to do. And I do remember when I first read The Secret, and it was many, many years ago now, but it was probably when I was in my maybe mid-20s. And I remember reading that book saying, oh my gosh, for the first time in my life, I feel like someone actually gets me. There is someone else that thinks the way that I've always thought, but I just never knew anyone else out there that thought that way, spoke that way, or understood the things that I just always innately knew to be true. So that's a little bit about my journey and how I came to do what I do now.
Oh, that's amazing. I remember the first time I ran into a group of people that got me, and I had tears in my eyes, oh my gosh, I'm not an alien after all.
Yeah, and so that's actually really interesting to say that, because I don't know that I've ever run into that group of people. So I actually created that group of people for myself. And that's part of what I did in the Inspired Impact book series that I created when I started this collection of authors with the first book. And as you know, now we're on our fifth book, right? So we have over 100 authors in that series. I would, really, for the first question I would ask people is, do you feel called to be part of this community and be part of this project? So right off the bat, I was setting a baseline for like, do you feel this? Do you get this? Like, do you want to be a part of this bigger mission, right? This bigger thing that we're doing in the world. And I think as a result of the way that it was set up, I have actually created a community of people that get me and get what we're doing. But I feel like it was something that I really needed to go out and create myself versus just run into people, because I never did.
That's really genius. I'm glad you shared that, because a lot of times I work with people and get feedback on the show a lot that people say, I can't find the people, or I don't know where they are. And part of the skill set that I teach people is, well, you can go create it, because you're not the only one. It's just sometimes you got to like get the vision out in a way or articulate it in a way so somebody can be drawn toward it.
I agree.
And so I think it's cool that you have been doing that innately all along, and like the world's finally catching up with you a little bit, like, oh yes.
Yeah. Well, you know what it allowed me to do? It was cool. I look back and realize why I did some of the things that I did and didn't do, didn't participate in a lot as well, right? It all makes sense now looking back. But as I began to, really follow what I was meant to do, especially for work, right? So I always lived life that way, but I was in corporate and I wasn't really aligned in all aspects of my life. And when I began to align it from all aspects, not making my profession different than who I am, right? A lot of people separate that and they say, well, this is business and this is pleasure. For me, you are one person. Like this is your whole life. It's all part of you, right? You can have boundaries for each area, but they're all part of you. You can't say this is another person that goes to work each day, or you can, but for me, it wasn't sustainable for ultimate fulfillment, right? And so I had to really get aligned in all aspects of my life for what I was always doing innately, as you put it, right? Or as we're saying. And when I was able to bring that all full circle, I started, I think, to give other people permission to live that way as well. And that's how people started to step up into that circle.
Yes, that's really, really cool, because I remember as you're talking that I was trained by my grandparents and my parents that you're one person at work, you're another person with your friends, and everything was compartmentalized because that's the way the culture was back then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a paradigm a lot of people need to break through. I agree. And me being one of them. Yeah.
Yes. And that paradigm of we're different everywhere is way old news. It's been old news for a long time. And I still think a lot of people are holding on to it or influenced by it, and they don't realize that they're influenced by it. Like, yes, I'm going to be authentic, and yes, I'm going to be real, and yes, I'm going to be aligned. And there's still all this disalignment because they haven't really figured out that they haven't really shifted the paradigm. It's a good idea, but there's that inner shift that needs to happen.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
It's so powerful to finally get everything lined up, and that flow then is just amazing. Mm-hmm. And that's really fun.
Very fun.
So do you ever overthink?
Not too often, to be honest with you. It's never been something I've struggled with. But as I began to get further into meditation and, just further into, that deep inner knowing of being able to check in and figure out, what's right for me and just what isn't, I can do very simple check-ins now. I don't take a lot of time to make decisions. I'm very clear most of the time on exactly what direction I'm headed, where I need to go. Mm-hmm. But that's never really been a big issue for me.
Cool. That's great. That's a rarity. And I think that's excellent. So when you're working with people, because you coach people and you help authors, you do a lot of working with other people.
Yes.
Do you run into people overthinking a lot in the kind of work that you do with the authors and book writing and things like that? Do you see people overthinking like what they're going to say or not say or any of that? And so then your gift of not overthinking a lot can help them? Or is that like not really an issue with the kind of people that you help?
I see a tremendous amount of overthinking. And I have actually never put that together the way that you just did with the fact, because I do not overthink, I think that actually, I never thought about that before, but I think that is exactly what makes such a brilliant match between me and my authors, is that you're right, most people do overthink, especially in authorship, where it's very vulnerable to put your story out in the world. The first thing they overthink is, am I good enough to tell a story? Who is ever going to read my story? What if my story isn't good enough? What if my writing isn't good enough? And, is this going to make an impact on anyone in the world? So it's all these worthiness issues right off the bat for most people. And I don't see that. When I look at someone, and it doesn't matter whether we're in person or not, I cannot see age. It's the weirdest thing. Like it's almost like I can't see your human shell. All I'm seeing is your energy. And so I see right through all of that. And it's really difficult for me to like back up and be like, okay, hold on, let me have compassion for what you're going through. Not that I don't have compassion, but I'm just so far ahead of you. I'm like, no, hold on. We have all these things we need to say, and you're capable of doing all of these things. And I'm seeing you 25 steps ahead of where you are now. And it's not going to be hard to get there. Like, this is exactly what the systematic approach is going to be to do it. And we can just put it into place right now. And so I'm like really very clear about where you're capable of going. So from that perspective, it is challenging for me when people start to overthink those basic things in the beginning, where I'm going, this is just a non-issue, but we still have to work through it, right? So authors very much overthink the worthiness. Then they overthink what value they can add. And then they are overthinking, the vulnerability of putting it out into the world and what judgment they're going to receive from other people. Those are the three main things that we see. And the one thing I can tell you when it comes to that is that we bring everyone back to baseline, regardless of what your core overthinking is. And we just remind people right off the bat that it is not about you. If you are wanting to be an author, if you're wanting to be a coach, if you're wanting to be a speaker, and you're wanting to get your story out to the world, you are doing that to help serve or heal someone else. And it is about them, and it is not about you. And the second you can reframe that energy to be about really helping others versus going internal about yourself, it really allows you to open up and break through that.
Oh, that's genius. So if you didn't catch that, rewind the podcast and listen to what Kate just said, because what she said is really, really important, that it's not about us. It's about the audience. It's about the other person. And, like Tony Robbins says, a meaning of communication is a response you get, right? And so a lot of times it's paying attention to getting out of our own ego and stepping back. And since you have that natural ability, it must be very comforting for the people who tend to overthink, and sometimes maybe frustrating for both of you because they don't get that you don't overthink like them and all of that. But in the end, it ends up being, to me, it sounds like this great kind of synergy, almost like making this really good soup where it's a nice combination of go for it, and I'm not really sure. And worthiness is definitely, in my world too, the number one cause of issues with overthinking and procrastination. And so you already have that identified before they even get there. And that has to be very comforting for them, to know that somebody's guiding them that gets some of these things that they can't even see yet, because you've already walked down this road. You already know what's happening.
Well, I think that's exactly it. And not only have I already walked down the road, I mean, my next book that we're working on is called Women Who Illuminate, and that'll be the 9th book that I've published. And I've also published 147 #1 best-selling authors separate from the book series that I published privately, right? So I've not only walked prior, on this path, but for my book series specifically, I walk with the authors every single time. I write a chapter in the book with them. I'm in the process along with them. I'm doing all the things along with them. So I think that trust factor has a lot to do with it. So if there was a frustration there, like, how can she be seeing it this way? And how is she 10 steps ahead, or whatever that looks like? I think that the trust factor overrides that, because they do really understand that not only have I done it before, but I am in it with them, supporting them through.
Yeah, that's brilliant, because I think the trust matters, that everybody's connected. Yeah,
absolutely.
So how do you handle it when somebody's procrastinating?
Well, in my business, as far as clients meeting deadlines,
that or your kids or yourself? Like if there's somebody procrastinating and you need something from them, what are some tips that you have to help with procrastination?
Well, I mean, I don't run into that to such a great extent, I think, because I set up the foundation in the beginning to lend to meeting goals. We don't call them deadlines. They are goals, and specifically with my clients in this, if we're talking about the book series example, there's a community around us, and we're all counting on each other to meet those goals at a certain time in order to go for the big win, which is to publish our book by a certain date, right? So generally people aren't dragging their feet because even if they wanted to, they know that there's 30 other women out there counting on them to do this, right? So when it comes to me, as far as to procrastination, because I'm sure everybody deals with this, I might not see the fact that my authors are procrastinating to such an extent because of the community that we built. And so that might not translate over to me exactly. But for myself, there's a couple of different things that I do to what I would reframe that as get motivated if I'm not really in alignment that day, which I guess would cause then procrastination. One of the main things that I do to stay in alignment is I schedule inspiration calls for myself. So a couple of times a week, or a couple of times a month rather, these would be mastermind calls with my peers. Not ones that I lead or anything like that. These are real traditional, like Napoleon Hill style mastermind calls where everybody gets on. We're all peers. These are the 5 people that you would want to be associated with that are always lifting you up and helping you grow to the next level in life and business. And these people are helping me stay inspired, right? And when I don't have those calls scheduled, I actually schedule inspiration calls, which are people that I want to connect with in the world that I know when we get on that 30-minute call, that, it's 15 minutes for them, 15 minutes for me. We update each other on what's going on. And I know that after I have that call, it will have added value to my day, to my life, to my week. And that will also help me stay inspired. So there's just different things like that I do throughout the week to really ensure that my mindset is one of growth versus or one of expansion versus contraction, because that procrastination is a fear-based contractual emotion, right? And so it's just a frequency to shift from so that you can get on a different frequency.
Yes, expansion's the word. You said it perfectly. I love listening to how you express things because it's interesting and fun for me to speak to somebody who's not always coming from what's wrong, but can see it from the other side too, and speak to that, because I like people to be inspired and motivated that we don't have to start out with what's wrong and we have to fix something. That what if everything was right, and it's about expanding what's already going well and right, and then the stuff that doesn't work so well falls away instead of always focusing on what's wrong. So I love how you're sharing these ideas, and because it comes from that viewpoint.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. You're welcome. So this is kind of a little bit of a shift, but I think it's really important. I want to talk for a minute about women in leadership.
Okay.
And because you're a leader in your industry and therefore also a leader in other ways too, leading the community and just a leader as your presence in our world. And I was speaking recently with some other women that I was in a workshop with, and they've also been on the podcast too. And we've talked about our feelings as women leaders, wanting to inspire other women to step up into more of a leadership role rather than playing that second class, that old school way of doing things. And you have created a great balance, and you are that leadership presence because you've created it. And so I would like to know if you have anything that you would like to share, maybe with a woman out there who knows they could be a leader, but they're hesitant, or maybe somebody who's kind of young and wants to be a leader, but doesn't know what to do. What would you want to say to them to help inspire them to step up into their leadership role and not play second class?
So I think that for the most important thing for any and all leaders is to just live authentically. And I don't care how overplayed that word is, I won't stop using it, because it is so important that people are living an authentic life. I just did a video about this in my group. And, I just posted, just kind of some different ways to position in our private group. It's a lot about, building a platform and positioning yourself to be a leader, like what you're talking about here. And I just did a video and I said, regardless of all the other things that I just said, right? Because I gave all these lists of tips and all these other things, different, techniques to consider and all of that. I said, above all else, as long as you show up authentic, as long as you just show up to be you, that is what is going to ignite something in someone else, regardless of what you're actually saying, right? Because again, it's about that frequency. It's about them seeing something in you that is true and then unlocking something true that's inside of them. And unless they have that level of authenticity, regardless of what words you're actually speaking, that will not occur. And if your leaders look to unlock things in other people, that's the only way to do it, right? And so, I gave the example. I said, look, it's no secret I work from home. This is my home office. Like, I work out of my home. And so I have children. I am also a mom, as you mentioned, right? I'm not trying to hide any aspect of my life. So if we're on a call and my kid comes in, I'm not going to pretend it's not happening, right? It's like they might pop in the video and it is what it is, right? Like, I'm not going to let them, disrupt the call, right? But I'm also not going to hide aspects of my life, So it's just, just different things about allowing people just to see all of who you are and not pretending that you're someone that you're not. There's different ways that you can go about doing that, but some really simple things are just to really tune into your emotions. And when something excites you, right? When something feels really good, when something's lighting you up, that feeling when every cell of your being is tingling with excitement or positive emotion. Those are the things in your life that are leading you towards the next step in your path that is for your highest and best. The things that make you cringe, the things that make you restricted, the things that make you really curl up inside, right? Those are the things that we have got to start ejecting from our life, because it is an indication that we are on the wrong path. It doesn't mean those things are bad. It just means they're not for us right now. It's not the right path. And so it's the simplest way just to really start that authentic living of saying, what in my life is serving me, that makes me feel good, that lifts me up so I can lift others, and what things are taking me away from that path that I really need to release because it is not part of my authentic living.
Yeah, I amen. That's what I have to say to that. And, I think about listening to you, and it's like, I just said this just a couple hours ago to one of my clients, where I said, it's not about judging the thing as wrong. It's just not for you now. Mm-hmm. It's when we get out of the judgment of it's right or it's wrong or it's good or it's bad. The better question is it serving me now? How is it serving the greater good? And is it serving the overall trajectory in a way that is beneficial for everybody? And it may or may not be tomorrow or next week. But right now, if we're not in alignment, then we're in trouble. And it's like so funny. It was like I was just talking to you a couple hours ago and we didn't. I love it.
Well, the other thing about that is that people think that, and we all have these moments. I'm not saying that my life is always like rainbows and sunshine. That's absolutely not the case. What I will say is that I have really done a lot of work and a lot of growth to ensure that when I am in that spiraling down, mindset, that I have the tools to take me out quicker, faster. So that's a difference, a huge difference in my life from where I am now to where I was 10 years ago, let's just say. But this is one thing that I really learned along the way that really helped me shift things, is that when I was in or am in, I can still get there in those places where I'm like, why am I doing this? Is anyone paying attention? Is anyone listening? Am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing? We all have a question. And when I am in that place, I feel like I am so off the mark that nothing can go right, and what we don't realize is that, let's just say that the center lane is our path, right? When we're in that place, we don't even feel like we're near the highway. We feel like we are in some deep, dark wood, you know what I mean? 500 miles off of the path, and we don't know how we're ever going to get there. When really what is the reality of it is that you can simply just be, you know, in the next lane, right? You can simply be in the shoulder of the road. And all you may need to do is take one step over. And with that one step, you are back on track. So what I'm saying is that whether you're in the shoulder or whether you are in that deep woods, right, the feeling is the same. When you are not in alignment with your path, it doesn't matter how many steps you are off that path, the feeling is the same. Keep in mind, you may only be a few steps away, even as bad as you feel, even as dark as you feel. You may only be just a few decisions, a few steps, a few opportunities away from being exactly back in alignment on your right path to exactly where you should be.
Yes, exactly. It could be right next door.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I took this picture one time because there's these sand dunes where we live, and to go out to the beach, and they're really pretty and they have these little boardwalks, and there's two boardwalks and the sand dunes are so high between them you can't see the other walk from one.
Yes.
And so I had my clients one time out there. I go over there. You won't be able to see me, but I'm right here. And sometimes we're right next to our path, and it feels like we're isolated and alone because we can't see anything, but really we're just a few steps away. And I like your analogy about the lanes because it's so true. You could be in that bad neighborhood or you could be in the next lane over, and it still has that same, that angsty feeling about it.
Yes, exactly.
Everybody, in case you haven't figured it out, Kate is an amazing professional success coach person for helping people really get their lives where they want it to be on multiple levels. And that's one of the many services that she has and does and offers. And so you're getting a taste of it just by us having this dialogue of just really how authentically powerful she is and how much work she's done to be able to sit in that position. So just pay attention to that as you listen to the rest of this conversation, and maybe even listen back to some of the things she said, because what she is saying is spot on, and we all can benefit from. Again, I know I can't wait to hear this whole interview again when I'm doing the editing because it's like, oh, this is so amazing. But I know that you really do a great job of working with people, and you're really awesome at bringing community together. And you also run your household with your children. And so what I would like to know now is, what does Kate like to do for fun?
So I set up my whole life to be fun. I'm not even going to pretend that that's not a thing for me. If it's not fun, I'm pretty much not doing it. So I love spending time with my kids. I have very clear boundaries around my business and my family time. I have a lot of fun with my husband, a lot of fun with my kids. We really enjoy the summer months where I live in the Northeast. So beach time for us is where it's at, boating, all of the summer activities you can imagine. We create that in the summer. We spend a lot of time in Florida. We go on vacations. We just got back from a cruise. So we love exploring. We love new adventures. We like visiting new countries in Europe. Like we really enjoy that traveling and new experience aspect. But from a business standpoint, all of my business is super, super fun too. I get to partner with the most wonderful people in the world. And we just literally sit down and say, well, what will be fun for us next year? Let's create that. And then that is a leg of our business. I mean, it's how so many of my verticals have come to fruition. I also do a ton of retreats, and my clients are people that I enjoy, people that feed my soul as much as I'm feeding theirs, right? And so we get together many times throughout the year. We do small, intimate retreats. We do a little bit larger retreats. We do events. All of those things are super fun for me, right? Because it's like we talked about, like, this is what I was meant to do. I was sitting in my room as a little girl, thinking all of this up, right? And so this is like what I've always dreamed of. And so every aspect of my life really has that element into it. It's really, I don't know if every aspect is so much fun per se, but all of it's bringing me pure joy. Does that make sense?
You're making perfect sense. And I have goosebumps, and I'm sitting here thinking how cool it would be to see some of those cool dream books that you did as a kid.
Yeah.
And the fun that went into it and the energy, you know, because the more energy you put into it, the more it manifests. And I'm like finding myself like getting all energized, just listening to the flow of it all. And then it gives me goosebumps. Like I have goosebumps because that is something that's so brilliant. And so many people let that fear that goes with the procrastination and overthinking kind of close them in and shut them down, when really all of us are meant to live wide open, you know, in that way with healthy boundaries. And so it's just beautiful. So you tell us a little bit about your business. I know a little bit about the books, but you might want to explain that a little bit to people and some of the other things you offer, because you do lots of different things for people to help them live the life they imagine through these really cool avenues. And I think I would like everyone to hear from you what that's about and how it came to be and what you would like to tell everybody. And of course, I'm going to put your website and your social media links in the show notes so you guys can get a hold of Kate through the show notes too. But I want you to hear from her about exactly what she does that turns her on, because it's really amazing. I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. You know, and the first thing I'll say is that what this business has developed into what I'll explain to you in just a moment over the past 6 years. Prior to that, I owned and operated a staffing and recruiting company because it was what I did in corporate. And when I had children, I didn't want to work. I didn't want to drive downtown to that corner office anymore that I had, which was gorgeous and beautiful. And I'd worked so hard to get there, but it just did not feel in alignment for me anymore after I had children. So I opened up my own company and I was doing that until, again, I just said, I don't think that I was born to do this. I enjoy this. I like this. It's extremely lucrative. I'd be coasting the rest of my life just by owning this company, financially speaking, but I couldn't do it anymore. And so I actually sold that company and began to do this, which was really what I knew I was always meant to do. And the overall umbrella of that is to help people find their life purpose and help people live the life that they've always dreamed of. I mean, that's really what we do in every aspect of our business. One way we do that, as you mentioned, is through the success coaching. And what we do in success coaching is help people through transitional times in their life, or times where they want to grow or figure out what is next and what is the best way for me to achieve that and get there, right? So any type of crossroads or transitional time or up leveling time, this is what we help people get through. We do that obviously through one-on-one coaching, but then we have different programs as well. So we have a life coaching group program, that is always available on our website. So for the people who, maybe want to check it out first or aren't at the point yet where they want to invest in one-on-one coaching, you get all the same information, and you can do it at your own pace and at your own time. We also have another absolutely extraordinary online program called Meditate to Activate Prosperity and Abundance. It is one of the most extraordinary programs I've ever done. And it is 30 days of me walking you through guided meditations to get into this alignment that we're talking about and truly expand into what is next for you. So that's a wonderful offering that we have. And there's also content coaching around that. So it's not just guided meditations. There's also 4 weeks of coaching that go along with that. So it's really a beautiful program. And then the book series that we talked about is when people discover what they want to do with their life, a lot of times they're like, I want to share it with the world. I want to shout it from the rooftops, and I want everyone to hear about this because I know it's going to help them. I know it's going to inspire them. I know it's going to expand them in their life and in their business. And so we kind of got into this idea around, I had already published my own books. I have children's books. I have adult books. I have all sorts of books, guidebooks out there. But I thought, what would be really fun is if I collaborated with other people that are getting these big messages out into the world, and we did it together. And that was how the Inspired book series came about. And so, as I mentioned, we're on our 5th book in the Inspired Impact book series called Women Who Illuminate. We started with Women Who Ignite, and we are now with Women Who Illuminate. And this is where people are able to share their story in the book, but we get to partner with 30 other women, which creates an extraordinarily large platform. Let's just say our audience is global at this point. I think we're represented in at least 12 different countries through our authorship, and our audience has grown exponentially with each book that goes out. So you can imagine when you market your own book, you're marketing to just your audience and, you know, the people that share from there. And with the collaboration book, we have 30 of us doing that in cross-pollinating audiences. So that's how it goes viral each time. And now we're on our 5th book for that. So it's a neat thing that has really kind of taken on a life of its own. And this movement is a major part of our business because we have so many people who are behind it now.
Oh, that is so cool. So all of this information is on your website. So I'll make sure that's in the show notes. And that way people can connect with you and be able to get more information, because I think that a lot of the things that you're offering not only cover a wide spectrum for people, but also come from a more uplifted kind of perspective that aligns with me a lot. And that is, you know, that it's not what's wrong with everybody. Let's look at what's right and let's make that even more great. And I love that about the series that you're doing and the coaching and the working with people to really bring people together with a sense of community. And I think that's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, you know, and in all aspects of what we do, we really get down to the core very quickly and from a very simple process. To one of the first questions you asked me, I always say, like, one of my triggers is when people make things more complicated than what they have to be. And that goes for book writing. And it also goes for something as huge as finding your life purpose. It's like, these things do not have to be hard. You are born with every single thing that you need to know for your life. And you were also born with a gift that you're meant to share with the world. Now, not everyone's meant to share it in the way of a book, but a lot of people do dream of that. And so we have really broken down these very big things, you know, and we have created very simple, not overthinking, not overly, produced processes to help people get to the core very quickly so that they can just start living the life that they've dreamed of.
That's wonderful. And I love that it's chunked down in a way that anybody, whether it's a beginner and somebody who's just now waking up to it, or somebody who's seasoned, or all different people, can plug into a system that supports the overall goal. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Right. So the last question I have for you, because you've been very patient answering all of my random questions that aren't really random, is there anything that I didn't mention or ask about that you really feel led to share with our Someone Gets Me community? Maybe that has to do with inspiring hope for them, or just letting people feel they're understood, whatever comes to mind. Is there anything I didn't say or ask about that's on your mind?
Well, the first thing I would invite everyone to is we have an annual event each year called Visible. It's held in the Philadelphia area. And this is one of the most loving, supportive, welcoming events that you will ever experience in your life, guaranteed. And so if you are someone out there who feels like nobody gets you, if you feel like you're not understood, I would really invite you to check out this event because I think that if nothing else, you'll find your tribe there. But along with that, you are going to get inspired. You will be growing your life and business by the time you leave this weekend event. And you'll just feel like you have a new lease on life. You'll feel like a brand new person. It's really, really a beautiful thing. So I would invite people to that. And for others out there who, as far as last thing to share, I would just say for anyone who, always, has felt a little bit different and perhaps could relate to my story, that they're, how do I say this? As long as each day you are taking some type of action towards what you know in your heart is for your highest and best, then what will unfold in front of you will lead you to being understood in the best way possible. I'll leave it with that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kate, thank you so much for being on the show today. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy work schedule and time with your family to share with us all of your amazing ideas.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
Yes, it was. So remember, everyone, keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you. You are a rock star and the world really needs your gifts. So go out there and shine brightly. And remember, be well until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Someone Gets Me. To find out more, please visit Dianne's website at MissDianneAllen.com. That's MissDianneAllen.com. Be sure to take a second and subscribe to the show and share with anyone that you think may benefit. Until next time, remember the world needs your special gift. So let your light shine.